Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, in that order of importance to myself. And today I'm talking about a six-issue series called Muties that was released in 2002. And it was written by Carl Ballers, and it was, or it could be Carl Bowlers, I guess it's Carl Bowlers, illustrated by five different artists, even though there was only six issues. Right off the bat, is it worth the read? And the answer is yes. Yeah, I definitely recommend this particular six issue series. The only thing going into it is that you got to understand what a mutant is in the Marvel universe. That's not hard to do because it is about various mutants. Now, the mutants that we're talking about here, it's not the spandex superhero X people fighting other superhero spandex X people. It's about people who have that mutant gene, or about stories about people that know somebody with the mutant gene and are affected by it. But it's like everyday life for these people. It's not my everyday life, but it is everyday life for these people who discover this mutant power, and how does it affect their daily lives. It's got a global scope. Each story is set in a different locale. There's Ireland and Africa and Rio de Janeiro. And I find it just was a fascinating and interesting read itself. A note about the writer himself, Carl Bowlers. Prior to this, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about his work. He did some work on Marvel Comics Presents, which I'm currently reading right now. So I'll take a look at see if I recognize his name on any of the stories or chapters. Then proceeded to write X-51. This is all from Marvel. X-51. I have no idea what that whole series is about. I'm going to guess that it's an X-related book because of the X in the title, but I don't know the book. He did the six issues of Muties, and then he went on to write a whole whack of Emma Frost. Again, a series that I have not read. Following Marvel, he left for Archie Comics and wrote a whole stack of Sonic the Hedgehog books. And from there, he became the senior editor over at Valiant. So the man has some chops. And he tells a good tale. Now, as far as the artists are concerned, again, I'm not familiar with these artists. And the first one up for this particular book here, issue number one, is Peter Ferguson, a Canadian artist, more of a painter than an illustrator. And he blends surrealism, fantasy, and realism in his paintings. If I had the editing skills beyond that of a chimpanzee, I could show you some of his artwork, but I don't have those skills just yet. So you might want to look up Peter Ferguson and his artwork online to get an idea of what he's accomplished. I personally would like to find a book of his work. Because I did find it very interesting, and I do find it very interesting. So for some reason, he hasn't done a lot of comic book work, but this is one of the books that he worked on. Was Muties, issue number one. Other artists include, again, names that I'm not familiar with, so I have to read them here. Patrick Spazianti, he did issue 2. Dean Hashbill did issue 3. Trent Kaninga did, or is it, yeah, I think it's Kaninga, anyways. He did issues 4 and 5, and Sal Good Sam did issue number 6. Again, I know nothing at all about these artists. I haven't seen their work other places. I know they do have works other places, but the names don't ring a bell. So, as I said, I've told you what basically each one is an individual story. They're not linked. Each one is separate into itself. So you could pick up any one of these and you'd get a complete story. And they're all worth a read. Oddly enough, I found that the odd numbered books, 1, 3, and 5, were slightly better than the even numbered books. But they were all worth a read, all a good read. My favorite, I suppose, is this one right here, issue number 1. Again, illustrated by Peter Ferguson. And I think part of what sells it is the artwork itself. I love the artwork. If you like what you're seeing on the cover here and you're intrigued by that kind of painting style and what's going on, you'll find more of that on the interior. But it's not just the painted artwork, of course, it's the story itself. And I found that the story it seemed like it was going one way, but it goes another way. And I like that about these tales, is that I was not sure at any point in time where they were going to go. So I was pleasantly surprised about that, and I thought they were all well written, and they all made you pause and think about the situations in the events. Very good series. I recommend it. My only regret is that it only lasted 6 issues. Now, it could have only been, they've contracted for 6 issues, but if it had done well enough in sales, I'm sure that they would have done another 6 issue series, but that didn't happen. And that's too bad, because I would like to see not just this writer, but other writers and other artists take on the same sort of concept. I'd be curious as to what kind of stories that they could come up with, and I think it would be a very interesting read. So unfortunately, it didn't do that well, but there are still these 6 issues. So we'll go through the 6 issue covers. This one here, as I say, this is probably my favorite of the bunch, but the other ones are darn good. The artist here, as I said, was Patrick Spazianti, and this one is, I think it's in Tokyo, somewhere in Japan. It might not be Tokyo. But he does a lot of the anime style comic books, or he's worked on those things, the giant robots and the anime characters. And that applies here. I mean, he's got that style, and that kind of style is reflected within this book itself. This one is possibly a contender also for the best story, issue number 3. I like this. Dean Hashbill does the artwork for this. I've seen artwork similar to this before, which is more of a block type of artwork as opposed to the detailed and intricate, but it really is effective, and it works well, and it works well with this story. I thought this was a great tale, as well as I say, it's on a given day it could be my number 1 spot. Although the Peter Ferguson art really pushes issue number 1 into the 1 spot, but I really like this one as well. This is issue number 3, and as you can see, it's set in Africa. I thought this one was the weakest of the bunch, but that's not fair to use the term weakest. It just applies because there's 6 and something has to be on the bottom rung. But it might be your favorite, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. It was a decent story. I don't think it wasn't quite as gripping, but it certainly had elements about it that were interesting, and I'm happy to have read it, and I'll read it again. So I did really like this one as well, but as I say, it's probably the 6th on my list. The 5th one here, and I really like this one as well. So good things to say about the entire 6-issue run. The only drawback on the 6th one is that sometimes that they used color in their word balloons and color in their lettering. So yellow on dark blue it would be fine, but orange on green is not. And for these old eyes, sometimes it was a little difficult to read what was being written. Sometimes. And that's not what you want when you're reading a comic book. You just want to be able to read it without, stumbling over the word balloons. It kind of disrupts the flow of the story itself. Still, very good story. I like the artwork. Everything about this series I did like. So I heartily recommend this series. So if we're talking about collecting, well, as I say, Peter Ferguson did the artwork on this. Hardly did any other artwork in the comic book vein. Maybe he's going to be rediscovered, or people are going to become a little bit more familiar and with his work. I think to the times of past artists like Gil Evgren and Rolf Armstrong, who did a lot of the pinup art in the 50s, and they did it on calendars that you used to see in gas stations and garages and things, of the pretty girl, the pinup girl. And they were disposable things. Once the year's done, you're done with the calendar. But a lot of people are interested in this artwork now, and they look for pieces that have this artwork. And what was once a disposable artwork is now a sought-after artwork. I don't think that we're talking quite the same thing with Peter Ferguson here, but I think as people learn about Peter Ferguson and perhaps he gets into some sort of greater acclaim, people will be looking back and say, hey, you know what? He did a couple of comic books. This was one of them. We'll be talking like years in the future that sort of thing might happen. But I'm not banking on that. I'm just suggesting that that's a possibility. So far as a speculation or investment is concerned, there, no, there is no speculation or investment here. I would buy these to read them. I would buy this one again for the artwork. The artwork is good, but especially this one here. They're all in the dollar bin. There people flip by them in the dollar bin for something else, and they pass by these books all the time. They're still there. This is from 2002, so I know that's 20 years ago. But there's dollar bin books from the 90s still there, so there's definitely dollar books from the 2000s in there as well. So do yourself a favor and pick up any one of these 6 stories. You're not going to each one is self-contained, as I said, so you'll be able to read that story and enjoy that story. If you can't pick up all 6, but again, I would recommend the odds over the evens, although the even stories are good as well. Do yourself a favor and pick up Muties. All right, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself. Take care of the other people around you. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. Ciao.